Hello everyone, it's Davide here and welcome back to Learning Finance. In today's video guys, I'm gonna do another video about Square stock. Say another video because if you follow my channel, I talked to you about Square in July, the first days of July, when the share price was around $100, so around here. And since then, the stock went up 70–80%. So if you saw those videos and if you bought the stock because of those videos, well, I'm pretty happy about that. It means that I've done a great thing. Now, a lot of time has passed since then, so now it's time to do another fundamental valuation and to see whether today is still a buy, hold, or sell. So the only thing I ask you guys is to give me an early like, which is very important for the channel and the video itself to reach more people. And if you want, subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. So Square, the stock today is trading at around $192.5 per share. And I told you in the previous video that I bought the shares back in June around $100 per share. Also, Cathie Woods from Ark Invest, she was very bullish back then in the stock and she was right. Great woman. She has done a lot of profit during this pandemic with the tech stocks. Anyway, we just had the Q3 earnings and we have an analyst from Citigroup which is basically saying still today that Square's growth opportunity is too big to ignore. So we will see why is that and what do I think about it, what is the fair price, and also what is, in my opinion, something that we have to pay attention to. Let's take a look at the third quarter for Square, so the shareholder letter, and when you skip the initial things, all this kind of fancy stuff, we go down, and we see the things that we really care about, and which is this, the consolidated statements of operation. Here we see what Square has done. September 30, 2020, comparing with the previous year, third quarter, we see that transaction-based revenue. So the business of Square is mainly based between these four categories. So we have transaction-based revenues, $925.29 million, subscriptions and services-based revenues. So here is included also the Cash App, $447.52 million. And then the hardware revenue, which is not doing great comparing with the other stuff. And then guys, pay very attention to this because I will come to it later. This is what could be a problem. Bitcoin revenue, $1.6 billion for Square. So when we see the total net revenue, so the total revenue, realize that it's $3.03 billion for Square in the third quarter, and more than 50% of it is from Bitcoin revenue. Another important thing to look at is that the costs, okay? So, and we realize how the Bitcoin business is not very efficient. 1.6 billion costs. So roughly around $33 million in gross profit from $1.63 billion in revenue. So not efficient at all. Anyway, we see that at the end, the net income is $36.5 million for Square in this third quarter. Now, let's take a look at the valuation. So first of all, I put the four main divisions. And so we have Q1, Q2, Q3. They are in yellow because we already have this data. And now the blue one over there are just expectations. So Q4 and then the complete 2020 year. We see that the transaction-based revenues increased 35.56% from Q2 to Q3. Here was negative, was basically the heart of the pandemic, so the center of the pandemic. And so I said, you know what, let's suppose another 30% from Q4. That will bring the revenues to $1.2 billion for transaction-based revenue. Then the subscription and services-based revenues, 29.24 the previous quarter, I said another 30%, so 581.7 millions. The hardware revenue, I put a 10% increase since Q3. And then the Bitcoin revenue, guys, here it comes the incredible, because we saw from Q1 to Q2 186%, and then from Q2 to Q3 86%. So I presumed another 80% for Q4, and that brings the revenue from Bitcoin to $2.94 billion. So we add all of that together and we get this one from each division, and then you sum all of them and you have the total revenue, the estimation for 2020, $11.09 billion in revenue. Now, what I did, I have done another model, another table, where I basically take the same divisions and then I calculate the growth, the historical growth from 2016 to 2019, and then trying to estimate also 2021, 22, 23, and 24. Now, 2020, I just showed you how I did it. So that's what we have. And then I calculated the average growth rates for each division during the last 4 years. And then I used those ones. I wanted to be more careful with them. I don't want to use this one because look at that. For example, this is Bitcoin revenues. Now, Bitcoin has been introduced in 2018 from Square, and we had a 210% growth in 2019, and now we are having a 1000% growth in 2020. So obviously, you cannot expect this to continue forever. It will be something incredible. Now compound this for the next 4 years and basically you have more than the revenue of Amazon. Okay, so this is not something I want to use. I want to be more conservative. Instead of taking just the average, which in my opinion is too much, I took a 50% growth each year for the Bitcoin division. Then another thing, for the hardware revenue, 14%, then 56% for the subscription and services-based revenues, and then the 17% for the transactions-based revenues. Let's see what we get. Obviously, you compound, overload them for the respective rates, and we have that in 2024, the total revenues will be $45.9 billion, and those are the year growth in total, okay, as a overall for all the divisions together. Once we have that, we can do two types of valuations. So the first one I want to do is a price to sale ratio valuation. So what we do, we take the total revenue in 2024, 45.9, and we go to macro trends and we realize that the historical price to sale ratio for Square since 2016, we can take an average. I took around 4.5 as an average to be conservative, so around that. So here we have, guys, 4.5 price to sale ratios. What we do, we take 45.9 multiplied by this, and we get the total market capitalization of Square in 2024. $206.5 billion for Square. Shares outstanding, 0.47, which means 470 million shares with a little bit of dilution. Now, when we divide the market cap divided by the total shares outstanding, what we get is the 2024 share price, $439.4 per share for Square. Now we have to discount these back today. So they are 4 years and 2 months, basically. And at a rate of 10%, because it's quite a risky investment. It's a tech stock, and 10% is a great rate of return for a company like Square, in my opinion. And we get at today's fair price of 295.5, which is huge considering the fact that the stock is trading today at 192. That would mean that the share price would be somewhere like, for example, here. So that would mean that the stock today is still a lot undervalued. Let's take a look at the second valuation, which this time is a PE valuation, so price to earning ratio. Now, first of all, I wanted to see the last quarter net margins, which they are pretty low. You just take the total revenues and you take the net income, you divide the net income by the total revenues, and you have the net margin, 1.20%, which is quite low. Anyway, once again, macro trends, Square net margin historically, we see that since 2015 they were negative, so the company was not profitable, and then you see how they go to the 0% level, and then now since 2019 is becoming profitable. And I see that they spiked up around 8% net margin and then declining 6%, 5.15%. Now, to be conservative, I took 4.5% in net margin in 2024. So when the business will become eventually more mature, they will be able probably to stabilize those margins. Anyway, I took 4.5%. And here we have what we do with that. We take once again the 2024 total revenue over there, $45.9 billion. And we take 4.5% of it. And so there we have a 2024 net income of $2.06 billion. Now we have to choose a PE ratio. I took 77 because it was the PE ratio that PayPal was trading before the pandemic. So now obviously skyrocketed up, but together with the same one of Square, which they are right now around 300. But anyway, I took around 78, 79 because I think that this is a decent PE ratio for the future, so for 2024. And let's see what we get. With a 77 PE ratio, we get a 2024 market capitalization of $159.02 billion for Square. Divided by the same amount of shares outstanding over there, we have a 2024 share price of 338.3. That, once again, discounted back today with a 10% interest rate, we have a today's fair price for Square of $227.4 per share. So once again, it is still undervalued. Now, this looks brilliant. With this analysis, we realize that today Square stock is still a buy, is still undervalued, and can continue to grow. However, now it comes the bad side, okay? Because there are pro and cons. So what is the con in this particular situation? When we take a look at that, the revenue division in 2024, and you know what is the orange part over there, which is around 63.5% of the entire revenues of Square, is Bitcoin division, okay, by 2024. We can see clearly from that Bitcoin revenue 29.14 billion compared with the other sides of the business. So this is obviously huge, and what that means is that Square will be strongly correlated, and it is already today strongly correlated with Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market. Now, I don't know if you know what they are or if you follow them. Obviously, it is a brilliant idea, so the crypto world and stuff. Anyway, it is something that doesn't have a regulation today. So it's not something that has precise rules. It's not something that we use. It's not something that, it's not a business. So it's not a company which makes money, which has a balance sheet, so you invest in those things. It's pure speculation and hope. So even though it can be a great idea, the currency of the internet world and stuff, we realize that it's a kind of a strange business to have the entire 63.5% of your revenue based in. It's very risky. I'm not saying that it's not great. I'm just saying that it's very risky. And Square will be very strongly correlated to that cryptocurrency world, especially Bitcoin. Now I'm going to show you something over there. So here we have, let's see Bitcoin today. So Bitcoin dollar, let's take Bitstamp. So here we have Bitcoin today around $40,800 per Bitcoin. Now what we do, we add, so compare, and we compare with the Square stock price. So here we have the red line is Square stock price and that one is Bitcoin. Here we see what I mean pretty clear. Look at that, since 2020, how the Square price is very correlated to Bitcoin price. We see that, look at that. This is 2020 before the pandemic. Same stuff on Square. Then the drop, the bottom, and then boom, all together. The same stuff, Bitcoin, and same stuff for Square as well. Then look at that, the top here on Bitcoin and the same pullback as happened on Square. Then once again, going up and going up. So you see how they are very correlated, and that can be the risk of Square. So to be very correlated to a market, to a world which is not very regulated so far, and we do not know for sure how it will be in the future. It's not a real business. It's just people buying and selling cryptocurrencies, which are basically just algorithms online. That's the main stuff about Square. We see that in terms of the fundamental valuation is still a strong buy today, okay? And I will keep holding my shares of Square. If you want to buy it, just buy it. In terms of fundamentals, it's brilliant. But bear in mind, I will continue to hold my Square position. I will not sell it. There is no doubt about that. What is the thing that you have to pay attention differently from other businesses like Facebook and Amazon and that? Is that with Square, if you hold Square, you have to pay attention. You have to take a close look to the Bitcoin market, so the cryptocurrency market, and especially Bitcoin. Because if you see some kind of issues with Bitcoin and regulations and stuff like that, then that can strongly affect the Square business. Because you see that all the investors around the world saw this. So in the earnings, in all the newspapers, 3.03 billions from Square, and all of them were happy, and then the stock price boom went up. Anyway, I don't think that the majority of them knows that this comes from the Bitcoin revenues. And even more, I don't think that the majority of them knows that Bitcoin costs are so high. So basically, this is a great number, but when you go deep and you see where it comes from, where it's starting to become less brilliant than how it is. And why I say you have to pay attention to Bitcoin revenue and the Bitcoin market and cryptocurrencies overall. Because let's say that we have a problem. So bad case scenario, cryptocurrencies get regulated in a strong way, and you cannot use Bitcoin anymore, or Bitcoin strict and strong regulations. Let's say that this comes back to, I don't know, 400 millions. So what will happen to the total revenue of Square? It will go down like crazy. And believe me, when investors realize that, the stock price will just gap down like crazy. So it is a brilliant company. I own it and I will continue to hold it. I showed you the fair price. We can take this one, we can take whatever you want, but it is still a buy today. However, be very careful to the cryptocurrency market. If you see some risks, some strong risks in the cryptocurrency market and something that you really don't like, well, then just know that Square can be very affected about those things. So that's it. Brilliant company to buy, but be careful because their main business is based on cryptocurrencies at the moment. So that could be very great, but also very, very risky. So that's just my advice. Brilliant company, but be careful to the cryptocurrency world. So I hope you find this video interesting, guys, and leave me a like, leave me a comment below, tell me if you bought Square when I told you to do it in June and how much money you made. So are you planning to add more shares? Are you planning to sell some shares? What would you like to do with Square? Just leave me a comment down below and subscribe to the channel, and as always, have a wonderful day.